What's going on, you guys? Kevin here. Today I'm going to show you how to adjust your chain tension on any motorcycle, but today's candidate is going to be a CSE TT250 2019 type. So got these little soft bags here, just going to flip them up out of the way, and as you're going to see, there's just way too much play on this chain right now. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, that's at risk of actually popping off of the sprocket. So basically you're supposed to have 3/5 of an inch of slack in the middle of this bottom part of the chain here, and as you see, that's like 1.5 inches, 2 inches, which is way too loose. So I'm going to show you how to tighten or loosen, depending what your situation is, your chain, and also how to properly lubricate it, which you should do each time that you adjust your chain, which I recommend doing if you're on a long ride or something like that, maybe every day before you hit the road. But if you're just commuting like myself most of the time, I would probably do this. I would probably adjust your chain tension and lubricate it at least every 500 miles, depending on what type of riding you do, your climate, how hard you ride, stuff like that. So let's get it. So to adjust your chain's tension, you do not need to jack your bike up and have the rear wheel off the ground. Actually, you get a more accurate reading if you just leave it on the ground, because you want your chain to have 3/5 of an inch of slack when the weight of the bike is, loading the rear suspension plus your body weight. So obviously you're not going to be on the bike because you're adjusting it, so you can kind of take that into consideration, that your chain is going to be a little tighter because the swing arm is going to be, further away from the bike or whatever. But all you need to do is loosen the rear axle. So on this bike, there is I want to say 18 millimeter on the left and a 19 millimeter lock nut on the right. And you're basically just going to loosen these up, and then you're going to use these two adjustment nuts here. I just use an adjustable crescent wrench, and the one that's closest in actually adjusts the tightness of the chain, which is going to adjust the alignment of your rear wheel. There's little notches on each side which are going to let you make sure that each side matches up, so that way your rear wheel is straight, it's not crooked or riding at an angle or whatever. And then the back nut is kind of just works as a lock nut to make sure that the actual adjustment nut doesn't back off and change on its own. Alright, so that crescent was a little too big and bulky to be getting in this tight space, so I got the actual correct size, the 13 millimeter. And as you tighten the right nut, you're going to see, hopefully you guys can see this, hopefully the lighting's good enough and everything. As you tighten it inward, it's pushing the axle further out, as you see. Hopefully you can see that. Slowly pushing it outwards, away from the bike, making the chain tighter. That's a little too tight, actually. Yeah, that's too tight. Back her off a little bit. So as you see, when you go to the left now, it's going to be moving in. It's a little bit better, still pretty tight. See about this other side over here. Oh, still recording. Alright, so once you got the adjustment you want, as you can see, clear on this right shock, or on this right side of the swing arm, because I don't have the side mount license plate on this side. That little tab on there is showing that I have it on the 3rd notch, so I'm going to make sure that the left side is aligned with that to make sure that the rear wheel is properly aligned and that I have the same amount of resistance on each side, so the chain is going to be consistently tight. Now this second nut here, just screw this in, and that is going to be kind of a lock nut to make sure that this first one, which is the actual adjustment, doesn't back out and make any adjustments on its own. And that is about it. And then to lubricate your chain, which I do every single time I adjust my chain, I just use the same exact motor oil that I use for, well, the motor whenever I change the oil. Put a little bit on a rag and go ahead and rotate the wheel. You don't have to jack it up. I do have a scissor lift, but I can, what I usually do a lot of times is just put it on a rag, put a nice light coat of the oil on there, then move the bike forward or backwards to where the chain, you know, the dry part comes out, and, you know, all that good stuff. And you want to make sure that you have a light coat, but you don't really want it sopping on there, because the first couple times you ride your bike, once it's been lubricated, it's just going to be slinging oil everywhere. And I don't have a chain guard on here currently, so, you know, I might be getting on my pant leg, or it does coat the back of my side mount license plate. And, you know, God forbid you might get some on the sidewall of your rear tire, and then you're losing traction. So you don't want to overdo the lubrication. You just want to make sure that these links and joints are well lubed, and your chain's gonna, you know, basically the main reason you're gonna lube the chain is to resist rust. So engine oil works great for that, and it's gonna keep all your moving components squeak free and well lubed.